Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. We've been discussing the Sony a7R Mark III. We've talked about the 22 features I wanted to point out to you that I think are making it such a great offering, making it a camera you should consider and weigh against the competition. We just discussed 5 things that might be potential negatives for you or potential downsides if you're looking at this camera versus the competition, which would namely be the Nikon D850 and the Canon 5DSR. And what I wanted to do was the first one that I talked about in that potential 5 negatives of the Sony a7R Mark III was the sensor. We've got the same 42 megapixel sensor that was in the Mark II, albeit we've got all the internals and the wiring and the tech tweaked so that we're getting better performance out of that same sensor by significant margins. But the fact remains that we don't get a bump in megapixels. Now, when the a7R Mark II came out, it was fairly class-leading. At the time, we had 36 megapixel King from Nikon, and actually, I don't remember. I think we hadn't seen the 5DS and the 5DSR. So at the time, I think it was the king of resolution. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's possible the 5DSR was out at that point, which was 50. But we were certainly trumping Nikon at that point. We hadn't seen the D850 at 46 megapixels. Now, we've got this announcement, the coming release of this new Sony a7R Mark III, and it's only 42 megapixels. Now, some of you will be like, oh, come on, it's only. How can you say that? 42 megapixels is more than enough. And that's a very valid argument. For a lot of people, they'll be very happy that we stayed at 42 megapixels and that we're getting more out of this sensor. We're getting more dynamic range. We're getting better noise from the sensor in the sense of being able to shoot at higher ISOs and a cleaner image. Everything basically is better with this sensor on the Mark III. And there's no disputing that. But what they've lost is pole position, the top of the food chain, if you will. We've got a D850 from Nikon at 46 megapixels. And it's 4 megapixels more. It's not a huge point at this point, but it is above the Sony a7R Mark III. They didn't release something that could claim to be the king. They've lost the king of the hill position. We've got the top now being currently in a DSLR, the 5DSR, the 50 megapixel Canon DSLR, 5DSR. And then you've got the Nikon D850 in second place, and now Sony's in third place. So we have a camera here that with the heritage is to be class leading for resolution. And then when you bring the update out, despite all the amazing goodness in this, it's no longer class leading. It's third place. And it's entirely possible that we could see Pentax or one of the other manufacturers come out with something that puts this camera in a lower position. So to come out with the newest one at third place, currently, it's leaving it acceptable to fall even further down the chain. Now, I'm just curious, you guys, I want to hear your feedback. What do you guys think? How much of an issue is this? It's like cars. Honda races cars, and they don't race cars and make the fastest cars on the track in order to sell you one. It's so that they can have bragging rights so that it helps sell a Civic or an Accord or whatever you're looking at in the Honda lineup that's more to your price point and not a super $1 million race car. So there is something to be said for having the top of the market, and that's why a lot of companies like to have these flagships. So this being Sony's flagship, it doesn't take the top. It doesn't reclaim the throne. And do you think that's a big deal? Is it something that you would have liked to seen Sony do? Does it not matter to you? Do you think, hey, like I said earlier, this is still a very, very good performing sensor. It's still 42 megapixels, which is still very close to the competition. And never mind that it's not the top, we like the better performance better. See, for me, I think I would have liked to have seen Sony spur the competition on by claiming the top again, by taking the throne, making the others move up in resolution, and still not sacrificed anything. I think we could have seen as good or very close to as good a performing sensor at 54 megapixels or 60 megapixels. And I think there's tricks and wizardry we could have seen that when you could release it at that, and then especially for various RAW modes and things. There could be ways that we could reclaim at least the noise title, so we'd have the high megapixels and high ISO available by shooting at a smaller RAW file size. That could have been done, and I don't think it would have sacrificed anything for video, because you could work that out in the software and in the sampling and whatnot. What do you guys think, though? Is it an issue? Would you like to have seen Sony reclaim the throne there? Or are you happy with it the way it is? Do you think it's going to make an impact on marketing and on sales because they haven't leaped back to, they're in third spot with the newest release? Do you think that's going to make a difference? Do you think it's a mistake? Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this. How much of an issue is it? Is it an issue at all? Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think and why. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.